We will now reconvene to the open session at 6 p.m. or 6:14. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
There's nothing to report out from closed session. Approve the August 14th, 2024 regular meeting agenda. A motion to approve. Roll call. Valerie? Aye. Teresa? Aye. Sammy?
Aye.
Patty? Aye. And I. Reports. Superintendent report.
Yes, good evening, Board President De La Fuente, members of the board. I'm going to keep this one short because I have an opening of schools presentation, but just welcome back. Happy first day. We had 3,227 students that walked through our doors. And so it was awesome. I want to thank all the teachers, classified staff, our leadership for just making a great first day. And I'll be going through some more stuff on opening of schools. I yield my time, Madam President.
Board of Trustees.
Yesterday, I attended CJUSD, their first athlete parent meeting, and it was really great. It was very informative. The translation was really on point as well. And it was nice to see, I think we had about maybe 40 parents out there, but it was nice. You got to register on Google. They gave you the information, and then they're telling us how they want to communicate with parents. Very, very informative. So I do appreciate that. Also, I want to thank the high school for allowing Mr. Ramirez and myself on campus today. The students were very happy to see each other. A lot of hugging, a lot of high fives. And it was really cool because I saw a lot of high schoolers with little kid backpacks, like with tons of images. It was awesome to see. So good job with that. I also received great reviews of Mark Twain and John Muir, their drop-off system. So I heard a lot of parents telling me today it was easy. It was very, very easy today. So good job, everyone.
I got the pleasure to go over to Fremont. It was a little chaotic with so many little kids, but it was really nice walking into their classes. So I appreciate the opportunity to go out there. Contrary to the high school, these kids wanted to have like their Nike backpacks. They no longer wanted their Minecraft or push backs, but I don't really know what's going on. I love it. Thank you.
I also attended last Friday's luncheon. It was a little bit different than every year. I think the staff were so excited to be back. And thank you for everybody for putting that on. Also had the pleasure of going to Fremont this morning. It's a little different, to say the least. I did get a lot of feedback about Bret Hart, Mark Twain, and John Muir. I think maybe the district need to be a little bit more aligned with everybody as far as how they do it, because a lot of parents showed some frustration at certain sites that it was different. And I think, but the kids were, I think some of the kids were really glad to be back. I personally helped a couple of kids that were very scared. One of them actually was almost crying, and so he didn't know what to do. But without that parent, going in the past where they were walking to the classroom or even have a open house the night before where they know where they're going, that might be helpful. I just think there's some things that we could tweak a little bit to make it a lot easier for the students. And we had some upset parents, of course, because they're concerned for the kid, new school, and but it went pretty well all across the board. Thank you for the high school for allowing Belle and I to go there. A lot of the kids were giving, like she said, high fives, hugs, and they just kind of. And then we had some with yellow shirts. I had to ask, "What's that yellow shirt?" And they wouldn't wear it, but they had the shirt, and they were the helpers for the freshmen, so I think that was cool. I think that was cool, and I think it was more, I'm not gonna wear that shirt, I'm a senior, but they did have it, and they were displaying it, so they were helpful. They, don't get me wrong, they were helpful, they helped the kids get their classes, but anyway, thank you very much for a great first day.
And I had the pleasure of going to Mark Twain. Little personal note, my granddaughter, I asked her if she'd like for me to go to her school and take her to school today. And she says, no, Grandma, I'm embarrassed. I'm scared. And so I didn't tell her I was going to be there. I was a greeter today. And when she saw me, she came from the cafeteria and I was up by the office and she yelled, Grandma. And even had me take her picture. We had our picture taken. So the kids were so anxious and excited about school today. And I saw some moms with a little bit of tears, but some that were so glad to put their kids off there. And it was real. I don't think there was over 5 students ever waiting in the line, was there, Jay? It went so smooth. Just, I don't think it could have been better. So kudos to Jay on that too. Thank you.
Before I give up my turn, there was one incident where the family was upset, but I liked the reaction of this principal or the staff there, that they went to go meet with her and explain the situation so they understood. So I like that they handled the issue right at hand and took care of the issue. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Other reports, opening of school 2024-25.
Yeah, you'll be showing, I'll share it on the screen.
Good evening, Board President De La Fuente, members of the board, and community, staff community that are here tonight. I want to say happy first day of school. The purpose of this presentation is to provide the board with a recap of our preparation for the first day of school. And I believe, and talked to a lot of people, that this hasn't been a presentation that's been done in the past or in the short past, right? And so, you know, thank you so much for your feedback, board. It's always important, right? That's one of the things that myself as a superintendent is always asking for. How can we do better? How can we do better as a team? Opening of schools is a very complex, you know, event, right? You're talking about over 1,200 families, 3,200 students, and so being able to make sure that, you know, everything is set in place is really takes a lot of different people. And so I want to just commend our, you know, from our classified staff to our certificated to even our leaders, you know, our principals that are there at the sites, helping out, working with the families. You know, they're about students, and so I want to thank them for that. It's not an easy job, and so you know, they pour out day in, day out to make sure that our families have, you know, the best experiences possible. So what we're going to go over today, just real quick, our learning is we're going to go over our clarity, the overview of summer work, our why, and our closing. So I want to thank you to the board as for providing us with the 3 priorities that you see up here. To the left, that's the what. Okay, it's what we're to focus on. So if you remember, you worked on that. And then on the right is the how, the strategies, how we're going to do that. And so we began to implement these since last semester when I came in, and looking at tiered system support, effective classroom management, for example. Our assessments, teachers said that we were testing too much. We went back and we kind of cleaned that up. Thank you, Mr. Jen, and beginning to start from scratch again, because we worked, right? Aligning curriculum was another piece. In the way that our schools are structured, very unique. Preschool 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and high school. And so being able to centralize that again, whereas for many years it was decentralized. And so what we have is, and you know, this is not new, was a very instructionally misaligned system. We had one school teaching one type of curriculum, another school teaching another, different type of test. And so the teachers actually called that out. And so we wanted to make sure that we began to align that work. And so that's what we started to do last semester and over the summer. And so I'll kind of go through some of those things. So on the next slide, one of the things that I want to share with the board is over the summer, our leadership team developed the leadership commitments and expectations that you see here. Now, these are important because one, we're aligning the board's priorities with what the leaders are expected to perform. So I heard the board loud and clear very early in our time together in that needed to be a level of accountability. But you cannot have accountability without having structure. Because then in essence, what happens is that it's kind of like playing a game. Like let's say Uno, I was playing Uno the other night with my family. And if you're changing the rules as you go throughout the game, there's not really any accountability because then no one's not going to know how they're expected to play that game. And so we developed what actions we will commit to, which is important, and it also provides clarity. And so accountability cannot happen without clear expectations, commitments, and agreements. And the accountability that we want for our system is one that's mutual in its own. It's not compliance driven. It's not a hammer, right? Because no one's going to stick around if it's a hammer. What they want to be able to see is what's clear and where is it that what do we need to do, and then how are we going to get there? And so that's what this is important. I do real quick before I move from the slide, just point to everyone here the commitments, which I was very proud of our team for doing. And so the first one, and I'm going to read it from here because it's a lot larger than my slide notes. It says that we are committed to being student-centered, data-driven decision makers, okay, in our decision making. So a lot of times we want to make decisions that might be rash or knee-jerk reactions, and we really have to look at the data. How is it going to affect us in the short term and the long term? And so that's what we're committed to. One example that I'll give from that is, for example, every year in every district at the beginning of the year, you have to level classes. That's one of the things that happens. And so we have to look at the data. One of the things we look at is retention. How many students actually stay at the school? Because there are students that come in and there are students that leave, right? And so we have to look at those and see what does it look like a month after school starts. And so if we hastily put other resources into place, we actually might not need them in the long term because we haven't taken the time to look at the data. And so we want to make sure that we do that. Okay. So the other thing that it says is we want to be honest and authentic in our feedback. And so our feedback, what we committed to is making sure that it's honest and that it's authentic and that it's about the actions and not the people. And so as we work together the last couple of days since Tuesday, after each day, the leadership gets together, the folks that are in this room, and we do a debrief. We say, like today, we met in here, so we met on Zoom because we didn't want to take them away from their sites. Some stuff's going on still there, right? Students are there. And we just ask principals, what do you need? Where is it that where we're doing well and where can we get better? And so that's authentic feedback and being honest. And it was really, we do it in 30 minutes and we just identify those areas of celebration and areas of growth. And then the next bullet is having mutual respect, that we mutually respect each other, regardless of title, right? What I tell our leadership team or anybody that I meet with is when we're in the room together, it's not about the title, it's about us working together towards what's best for students. And then the last two are working as a unified team, right? That we're there to work together. We're not there to work apart from each other. And in order for us to do what's best for our kids, knowing that 30% are proficient in ELA and less than 20% are proficient in math, we have to be unified, right? We saw a perfect example this last couple of weeks in the Olympics. I don't know if you had a chance to watch the Olympics, but teams that won the gold, there's probably, when they would interview them, the one thing I heard time and time again was that there was an immense amount of trust with that team. They communicated and that they were unified, right? And so that's what we really talked about is how do we get there in order to be to be the best for our kids. And the last one is transparent two-way communication, that there's transparency, right, in our communication. We know, and I'll say it here, and our site leaders know, and our leaders in the district, I told them this year and every year, we're going to do things really well, but we're also going to fail. Because if we're not trying and we're being complacent, then of course there's not gonna be any failure. Because we're okay with the status quo. And so the one thing I wanna make sure that they understand is that as long as you're failing forward, and as long as you're declaring that, hey, you know what, I needed help here, or hey, you know what, this didn't go the way that I needed it to go. How can we work through this? That's what's most important. So then at that point, they feel empowered to be able to do what they need to do. Right? And so that's the conversations that we had in developing this. And it actually, we started in June and we took 3 days. We came back in August and took another half day, and that's what's here. So leaders here in this room know exactly what's expected of them, something that hadn't been done in the past. Next slide. Our data team, or our district team, our team worked hard to see priority 3 lived. So in priority 3, the board said, we want you to engage in families in a deep way, past the game. And so thank you, Vice President Vega, because you gave highlights of the meeting yesterday. That was one example, right? We can give the parents a handbook, but are they truly going to read it or have an opportunity to ask questions? So that was a way to engage them. The second thing that we did was and this is something new, not new, it's something that we've done in the past, is we engage families in a meaningful way through our data confirmation. Over a 2-day span, we served 1,223 families. That's pretty awesome. That's amazing. This equates to the 3,227 students that we have right now in our system. We are close to our end of year count with students registering each day. So we're very close, okay? And so what this data confirmation did was, it was wraparound services. Families came in, the nurses were there, technology, IT was there, every single division, department was there to make sure that families had what they needed. We had translators or interpreters that were there to help as well. So it was great to see our team come together with the primary focus of helping our students. And so that was very key. I want to thank each department for pitching in to serve our families. Thank you all. You did an amazing job. Educational services. Priority 2 states that the board seeks that students learn at high levels, right? And so we had that conversation. You wanted to see that we move that needle from 30% and less than 20% up, right? And so in order to do that, we have to refrain instruction. Because if you remember when I showed you the data, that had been the same for the last 10 years, right? There hadn't been much movement. So we had summer school this year, and it began on June 10th and concluded on July 26th. And we had summer school in the past, so it's not something that's new, but what Mr. Gent and the team did was really work with the RAC to provide enrichment opportunities for students, so they had a joy of learning. What folks don't understand is research shows that summer school is not going to move the needle on academics solely. You're not going to move a kid at grade level in a short amount of time, right? But what you can do is show them that learning's fun, so they can change their mindset when they come back to the new year and be engaged and ready to learn. And so we had summer school, TK through 12th grade. We utilized Fremont, Mark Twain, John Muir, and the high school to provide STEM projects, field trips, enrichment activities, and credit recovery courses for students. That was new, that length of time, I believe, right, Mr. Gent, the span of time? To the 26th, July 26th.
The rep usually runs that long.
Okay.
Ours is just usually.
The June, okay. So definitely working around those pieces as well was super important, right? Keeping those rooms clean as well as doing the deep cleaning during the summer. Summer school programs were run through the morning hours and ended on June 28th with 519 students, kinder through 11th grade. And then Corcoran, Joint Unified School District, and about 60% of the students completed the 3-week program. The RAC program ran all the way through July 26th, and then combined, roughly about 300 students were through that program, right, completing. I want to thank our food service folks, because in the summer they fed, or they made 19,000 meals, okay, which I think is pretty awesome. So I want to thank them for that. In addition to that, we started with over 70 students in grades 5th through 9th grade participating in accelerated math camp. and we had 45 complete. So this is super exciting because this is an accelerated program, right? We don't have a GATE program in our district where students who are wanting to accelerate, other than dual enrollment, there's nothing in the younger grades. And so this allowed us to be able to provide students with an accelerated program where it just wasn't about enrichment, it was about sharing the love of math. And so we had 45 complete. Would we have gone to summer math camp in the summer when we were young? I don't know, maybe we would, maybe we wouldn't. But we had 45 students that completed 4 weeks of math for 6 hours a day, traveling an hour over there and an hour back to Fresno Pacific to do math. And as I was talking to them, and I went a couple times, what I asked them was, what's the difference between what you're doing here and what you're doing in the district? And I shared this at the luncheon. So this a message that I shared. They said, we're challenged here. It's real world problems. We're not doing worksheets, but what we're doing is our learning is being stretched. And before we're released into independent practice, our teachers and our learning assistants are making sure that we know the content so then we can go on our own, right? Versus just saying, here's the bike, you figure it out, right, to write. And so that's one of the big changes, one of the big things. Through our partnership with UC Merced and Fresno Pacific, our students were able to experience university life. And so I want to thank you, board, for being courageous enough to have this for our students, right? So because of your approval of that partnership with UC Merced, we were actually able to provide this for our students. And so that was pretty amazing. All right, next slide. One of the things that we're really focusing on this year are 3 areas: identifying essential standards, looking at our PLCs, our professional learning communities, and then looking at coaching. And so over the summer, a team of teachers at each grade level worked over the summer to identify the essential standards. Now, what does that mean? Students have to learn a set of skills. We call them standards. And so those skills, some of them are only for that grade and others move on beyond 1 grade. And what our teachers did over the summer, some of them identified what are the most important ones that are going to build a good foundation for their learning. Okay. And so I want to thank our teachers for doing that. It was amazing to see them work. I stepped into many classrooms over the summer to see that happening. And it was exciting to see them, even themselves, have a joy for learning. So that was really good. Teachers also developed benchmark assessments to give at 2 different times in English language arts and math to track the students' progress towards how they're going to do on the end test, right? The CASP. We began our professional learning with solution tree, and that's kind of over here on the right with Dory giving that presentation. And so professional learning communities, what those are teachers getting together to be able to look at student data and then make changes to their instruction together, right? And so they're collaborating. And so one of the things we heard from teachers, and when I went and did my listening and learning sessions, was, especially in the elementary level, was that their collaboration time was kind of all over the place, right? There was no alignment there. And so what we've done over the summer is work with them and also work with our leaders to align that. So they know what weeks are PLC weeks, what week is a week that they're working on professional learning, the times within those chunks, the early release days or late starts. So now what's happening at Bret Harte would be similar to Fremont, would be similar to Mark Twain. And then also at the middle school and high school, they would have similar chunks of time. And so it becomes very clear, okay, to our staff. Administrative teams began training on August 1st, and we really worked on what is a PLC, right? And so we started to define that. And then our principals, so proud of them, they took that learning and began to train the teachers. Okay, so it's not going to be a one-time thing, it's going to be over time, but that's where we got started. So again, our focus areas are very clear. Okay, essential standards and high quality instruction, PLCs, and coaching. Those are the 3 areas, right, that we're focused on. One last highlight was our SPED teachers. For the first time, we had our teachers come together to review our first special education handbook. and align expectation for IEPs. That had not been done in the past, and that's super important. Because the IEP is a contract that is given between a parent and the district based on the student's needs. And if the language is not aligned and a student is in our system and they're moving 4 times, okay, between 4 schools, and that language is shifting as they're going through each transition, then that becomes confusing for the parent and also for the student. So we spent, our team spent time last semester to begin to develop this handbook with our consultant that you had approved, and I want to thank you for that because it's been a great investment. And from there, that handbook was developed and teachers came back and they gave feedback and they were trained in it. And so it's not going to be because they had 2 days of training that it's done, right? You all know through implementation, it's going to take time to learn, but we have a starting point, which we never had in the past. And so I want to commend our special education teachers, our paras that work with them because they're so important as well. They provide instructional support to our students, just like the teachers and Ms. Copeland and everybody that helped with that as well. Next slide. Our human resources department and ed services teams, which are Chuck and Rebecca, came together and partnered to provide onboarding for our 26 new employees. And so there was a mix of both teachers and classified. And so you see there on the right, they got some swag, right? So we wanted to thank them and welcome them for choosing Corcoran because they could have chose anywhere, but they chose here, right? And we provided food and we provided a lot of time for them to interact. And so I want to thank all of our team members from the various departments that welcomed them. And as the staff was kind of going through it, I would talk to them and say, how are things going? Is there anything we can improve upon? They said, you know, we really feel welcome. So thank you so much. And this work aligns to priority 1. Okay, so inclusive, welcoming, right? The biggest, and I'll say this before I move to this next slide. If we want to recruit people, the biggest recruitment tool is actually retention, right? And so that's where this onboarding is so important and how we begin to continue to work with our teachers and our classified staff. So they feel like they have the skills that they need to move forward. The welcome luncheon, next slide. We had an amazing welcome back luncheon. And so far feedback from the survey, and I shared that with the board, the initial feedback is extremely positive, right? And so a majority of the people liked the event. Coach Q was a hit, right? He spoke on the topic, are you healthy enough to serve? And so what he gave was a prompt, and he gave a prompt that was water. And he talked about how in ag, the quality of the water is so important to the product that's taken from a tree. If the water's clean, it'll help the tree grow. But if it's filled with anger, depression, right? Divisiveness, whatever, and you put that into the ground, you might not get the healthy fruit that tree should have bore. And so the reason why we chose this individual was because we used it based on data. If you remember, our panorama data showed that, we had folks that really were needing to have a culture boost, right? And so this helped. And so I just there alone, just the feedback that I got, I was walking around and it was like, hey, we love this guy. Coach Q was great. Staff went back, and I know that John Muir for sure has done it. I don't know if some of the other schools are doing it right now, but they have posters that were made. And it says, and I'll take pictures and share them with you. We commit to serve, and they put how they're going to do it. So they had different things that they're putting down, right? So each school's going to be different. And then they signed the bottom as a team to say, this is how we're committing to serve. The way that we begin to transform the culture of our district is not through a program, it's not through compliance, but it's through mutual accountability. And that's where this starts. And so our principals know as part of their expectations that that's part of the work that we need to do. And so I want to thank them for that. The last piece is operations. So I just want to briefly go through these. So Corcoran High School, had a lot of things happen there. So I don't know if you saw the tennis courts, they look amazing. I went out there this summer when they were done and students were practicing, and they love them. It's like you can see the smile on their face and like, these courts are really good. You know, I remember talking to one student, they were like, I love these courts. In addition to that, we had worked on the baseball varsity side, got concrete and poured some new bleachers and the football stadiums, boys restrooms. Old urinals were removed and new urinals were put in place. And so we're also looking at putting partitions between them, because one of the things that we've talked about with students is they want to have some privacy, and we get it. And so those are things that we're listening to and then acting to, right? The ag shop got old roll-up doors, and we had them removed, and there were some new roll-up doors were installed. John here. We had 6 classrooms that the floor was removed and new floor was installed. All the interior walls got painted. The main gym, the old light fixtures were removed and replaced with new LED lights. Looks amazing. The new tough sheds were installed for the ag farm. So now what we're having is a continuum. So students learn early on in middle school about ag and then want to continue that pathway in high school, which I think is amazing. In Fremont. But before I move on to Fremont, another room that we looked at, which is not on here, was our RSP room. And it's a smaller room, and it was actually the walls were kind of like, I don't know what it's called, tack board. The walls were peeling, like students had peeled the walls, and there was like touch up, like stucco that was there, but it wasn't painted over, all these things. Some of you guys saw that room. Well, I want to thank Mr. Rojas and the team, and you know, we also obviously had a contractor came in too to fix that, but that room looks brand new. And what's important is, as I walked through that room and talked to students, you know, they didn't say it outright, but you could tell like, when you're in a room that looks like that, do they feel valued? And so thank you, board, because you approved that, and then we're able to, you know, fix that room. And so there's others that we got to work through, but that's a start. Fremont, we had 2 light poles put in and that were installed in front and back of the office and the cafeteria. We had a 5 feet concrete behind the D&E wings. If you can remember, you went and did the tours. Okay, that was kind of what was put down there based off of your approvals. And then Kings Lake, I'm sure we all passed by Kings Lake, and it looks a lot better than what it had before. And so I want to thank all of our teams for really you know, improving the look on the outside, but also the in. They changed the floors, the carpet on the inside, and if you notice, even the lighting, a lot of the aisles were discolored, and now they're not. Okay, and again, it goes back to, you know, our most at-risk students. Do we make an environment where they're actually wanting to come to school and excited? And so just even being in a place that aesthetically looks nice might get them there. Okay, so I want to thank you for your leadership and being able to help us with that. We do have some still work to do throughout the district. Over in Kings Lake, for example, we're working on the moving of the pole, the power pole. So we're working with PG&E, and then we'll install the new lunch area, right? That's there, the building. And then there's some other pieces, some other work that's happening throughout the year. The science building, which is a 50-year-old building, really looking to see, how we continue to modernize that. And if you ever watch those shows where they're like flipping a house, and they get a really old home, and they're like, okay, that looks great. And then once they tear off the sheetrock, and then they get behind it, they're like, oh my gosh, what do we see? Well, that's going to happen with this building because it's 50 years old, right? And so those are things that we're working through. So the last slide. So our why. Why did we do all this work, right? Why did our custodial staff and our grounds folks and everybody work throughout the summer? And like I mentioned at the luncheon, it was hot. But the one thing I want to commend and I know a lot of them aren't watching tonight, but Mr. Rojas knows that, I told them myself, is that never once did they complain. And I would go out there with the, to say hi, see how they're doing. They're beautifying the campuses and I say, hey, make sure you're hydrating. Make sure you're taking some breaks. And then I'm over there walking around without a hat. It's like 110 degrees. And one of them's like, you better get a hat or else I'm gonna give you mine. And I have another one in the truck, right? So it's like that level of camaraderie, that pride in their facilities was amazing. And so I want to thank them because it shows in, the first day. And so we do this because of these pictures, right? The 3,227 students that are walking through our doors and the more that will come, okay, they are our why. This year, we need to focus on students. If we are here to see change, it needs to be about them, right? And just like I had mentioned earlier, we're gonna focus and we're gonna be intentional about what we do. Will we do great things? Yes. Will we fail? Yes. But if we're learning to fail forward is different than just being the status quo. And so I want to thank the board for just all the investments that you've made. We're here to and also to look at the priorities that you had set. It's setting the standard for us. So thank you. So with that, I yield my time or our presentation. If there's any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. 2022-23 teaching assignment monitoring outcomes, Elizabeth Mendoza.
So the California Department of Ed recently released the 22-23 teaching assignment monitoring outcomes with full-time equivalency reports and data quests. And the CDE will report the 22-23 data in the 2024 fall dashboard, which will come out in a few months. As part of the priority 1 local indicator. So since the 22-23 CAMO data was not available at the time that we were reporting our local indicators, they requested that we report to the governing board at the next available meeting the updated data. So which is tonight's meeting. I've given you 2 pages that look almost identical, but if you look at the top one that I stamped void, that was what I reported to you guys on the June 26th meeting and the local indicators, because that was the most current data. But because the 22-23 data was released in July, it was required that we update that data into the local indicators before we had to report on July 31st. So just a quick overview over what the difference is there was an increase, there was a decrease of full-time equivalent teaching staff from 158 to 155.6. And of course, this has to do with declining enrollment and attrition. There was a slight increase in clear credentials, which is good. A small number of decreases that occurred in the out of field and the intern credentials, which is what we want to see, because the lower we have in those numbers, the higher we have in credentialed numbers. Also, our ineffective category increased by almost 5%. And our incomplete section decreased, which means that the system accepted the match between the credentials that our teachers had and the courses that were being taught or that we tied them to. There was a small increase in the unknown and the not applicable, but we are growing with the CalSAS system and all the intricacies that come with that. So as we add classes and we tie the teacher's credential to those courses and align them, that changes the, and if the unknown, the NA, and then the incomplete sections. So, those are the differences.
Can you explain the ineffective a little bit for me? Because
Yes.
it's like numbers change.
Well, what California determines as an ineffective teacher are teachers that have provisional internship permits, short-term staff permits, variable term waivers, substitute permits, the TIPSLs, the substitute teaching permits for statutory leave, the TIPSL. So if a teacher has any of those credentials, that label ineffective is what California names them, unfortunately. So sometimes we get last minute changes where we have to hire last minute, and sometimes the only personnel that we can hire would be on a PIP or a STIP, because those are last minute and fully credentialed teachers that are sometimes difficult to find late in the game. So, yes. Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Corporate Faculty Association, CFA.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Roseanne Salcido, Corcoran Faculty Association President. The new year has begun. We started out last week with site meetings, a CFA breakfast, and a district luncheon. The past 2 days, teachers were eagerly awaiting the first day of school with students. We have had a few issues that teachers would like to address upon our return. First, we did not have any copy paper to start out the year, which caused teachers a bit of stress in preparing for our students. However, teachers were solving this issue by borrowing and sharing and purchasing our own supply of copy paper until the district was able to provide the necessary materials to teach our students, which most of us got this morning. Since last week, teachers have been preparing their rooms for students, and we would have liked to come on the weekend before school started to set up our classrooms, but we weren't able to because of the school sites being sprayed for pesticides. And for some reason, this is done every year on the weekend right before school starts. So we have a lot of new and returning teachers who need lots of time to prepare the classrooms because we have upcoming back to school nights, as well as to prepare for curriculum for the first week back. There were also a few teachers who had some issues with their air conditioning, so it caused some delays also in preparing for the classrooms. It was just too hot for some of them to work in, and they didn't exactly get a whole lot of time to prepare for the first day back, but eventually that was taken care of right away. Other than that, it was a great first day back at school. The kids were excited. The teachers were excited. So of course, we're all excited for the upcoming school year with our students. Thank you for your time. Corcoran Faculty Association.
Thank you. California School Employees Association, CSEA.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good evening, board members and administration. Dulce Sandoval, CSEA Chapter President. The 24-25 school year has officially begun. All of the school sites did a wonderful job decorating and making the students and parents feel welcomed. I applaud the return of allowing parents to walk their students to class. This eases the nerves for both parents and children alike. We love taking pictures and making sure they get to their classrooms. Thank you for that opportunity, and I hope that it continues. The luncheon food was delicious, as always, but it seems we might be outgrowing the TLC, which is a good thing in my opinion. The speaker was very interesting and entertaining, although I wish he would have spoke a little longer and gotten through his entire presentation. I did notice that the personnel assignment order sheet was missing from this agenda, and I am not sure if it was a mistake or if these will no longer be included in the packets. All of the hard work that the MOT department has been doing has been amazing. All of the new additions and beautification projects are greatly appreciated. The custodians, maintenance, and everyone in the MOT department have worked very hard all summer, and maybe they should get a special thank you lunch. Just an idea. We are excited for the new year, and we look forward to the positive changes to come with Mr. Pacino's plan of improvement. We hope the communication increases and we are treated as collaborative partners, and our input is sought throughout the year instead of just given orders or vague directions and left to decipher and execute a new task or duty. We welcome all the new classified staff that was recently hired over the summer. And before the school year ended, we are hopeful that this year will be the start of a long-awaited positive change into becoming a true destination district we can all be proud of, and the community truly feels that this is the best district for their children's education. Now let's go out there and provide the best of us to our students. Thank you.
Thank you. Public comment. Members of the public wanting to provide public comments on items listed on tonight's agenda, we recommend you fill out a public comment form on the table in the forum and head it to Gina Gonzalez before the item comes up on the agenda. We recommend you complete a separate form for each agenda item you want to comment on. Members of the public providing public comment, please use the microphone on the podium in the middle of the boardroom. Robin Feldman.
I wasn't really going to come tonight, but I made it back from Tulare in time. My name is Robin Feldman. I live at 420 Denton Avenue, Corcoran. I work for the district. I'm a TK teacher. I'm speaking tonight because I have concerns regarding the TK class sizes. This district has built 6 TK rooms, anticipating growth as the birthdays are changed each year. They're getting younger, which means we have more TK students. We also continue to enroll kids all of August and even up to Labor Day. Last year, we went over and a new TK was not added until October. This year, we already maxed out at 24. One teacher is currently going to start tomorrow at 25. This is a disservice to our students who are just 4 years old to start in such an environment where the teacher has to spend most of the time on management due to the large numbers. We do have an aide, so it is legal as 12-to-1 is the law, but we are still enrolling, which is going to put us over. LA received a significant number of money and fines last year for being out of compliance in the TK ratios. I would imagine the Department of Ed will continue to monitor this. It is my understanding our principal did request a TK teacher to be hired last year for this coming year, but that was not approved for some reason, I don't know. Which, as it was mentioned, it's hard to find a qualified teacher, let alone in TK. And if we are going to hire a teacher now, they're going to be, as Elizabeth talked about, chips. Well, they won't be qualified. They'll be hired as an emergency. Our principal is supportive of a smaller class size. Our district has had previous experience with this last year with TK expanding and a last minute hire last year. Corcoran Unified School District receives additional add-on ADA TK funds, Educational Code Section 42238.02, Section G, Section 2, which is in the past was $2,813. This I know they used to pay for aides, but it seems like they could have planned to also have another teacher lined up for now. One suggestion would be to immediately hire a sub to take the overflow of TK students and fly this TK position as soon as possible. This would be more educationally sound for the development of our TK students. I feel like our district should have put more time and effort into assessing this year's TK numbers, as already day 2 tomorrow, we're going to be at legal limit and over. I hope something can be done quickly to resolve this situation. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. The superintendent will look into that.
Thank you.
Action items, consent agenda.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion. On number 9. Interim chief figures off some temporary employment agreement. How are we doing that?
Can you clarify how we're doing that?
Is this person coming to work every day?
Yeah, so this person is actually not here in the area. They live in Dallas. And so in the update, I had put that they are, because of the time span, their job allows them to be available to us 1 to 5, sorry, and then all day Friday. And so we did extensive search as far as potential interim CBOs. Most of them were not in the area, and the one that potentially was not, it wasn't a fit. This was actually the person who the county actually recommended. He has been in the county before, district office for 6 years as a CBO, and they were the one that actually highly recommended by our county office of education. So they've been helping us to look for somebody.
Can you explain how it's going to work?
Yeah, so it's just like we did during COVID, we all worked kind of remotely, and so they will be here Zoom wise available to folks. They're going to be working on the unaudited actuals. Their main focus is going to be the finances. So I'll still.
Mr. Pacheco,
Yes.
correct me if I'm wrong, we did not have our CBO working from home during COVID. Right, we had our students and our teachers working.
Yeah,
I don't remember our CBO work. Well, my question is, how is this individual going to get the data that he needs in order to fix our budget when be the CBO? Is my question.
Yeah, remotely. Everything is digital, so it's accessible that way. The county uses an online program called FMS, and so he'll have access to that. We'll give him a district computer, and so that's all part of the temporary plan. And so
That was my
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Also on number 10. 10, what is this? Perform educational leadership alumni leadership reunion.
Yes.
Texas.
Yeah, so this was approved by the board back in May, but I brought it back again because it was postponed. This is a group of district leaders throughout the nation, and they meet together. And they're large districts, small districts, and so it's coming together and we do professional learning. So it's not a reunion like you would think, like a high school reunion or something like that. It's actually, that's just what they call it. It's a professional learning
Does ASCO provide those services here in California?
They do provide them as well. Yeah.
And the trip that you're requesting to Dallas, Texas, if I look at the request for the trip, the only thing that says is funds will be paid by general fund. And I think I relayed to you how I feel about a blank check. But I don't expect blank checks. I don't write blank checks. I want to know how much it's going to cost. I want to know what the flights are going to cost. I want to know what the hotel's going to be. Whether a car will be required, what kind of car will be required. Right? So I want to amend my motion to approve with the exception of number 1010. No, you would have to be the second motion, second, my new motion, or not.
Yes, you can give me a motion. Roll call, Valerie,
Aye.
Teresa,
aye.
Sammy,
I,
Patty,
Aye.
and I. Administration, consider the approval of the 2024-25 Corcoran High School Advisory Course. Do I have a motion?
I think. May I add something here? I think when a lot of these things come to this board. I, for one, and I'm not going to speak for the rest of the board, but it comes to us as. Out of the blue for me. And for me to understand something, I would like to present them there at that podium. Tell me why I should approve something. Right, and it's just not the paperwork that you send me, because I can look at paperwork all day long. I want to know what it's for. how it's gonna benefit the kids, how it's gonna benefit the teacher. That's what I'm looking for. And in order for me to spend money like that, because it's gonna be really tight and my belt's already tight, I don't like approving things where I'm in the dark and I don't know what I'm approving. So I would recommend that your administration come up to this board, present what they are asking for. So I could understand and maybe the entire board could understand. And if anybody agrees with me, please help.
I completely agree with that. That's how we do things at the city as well. The person who writes the staff report is the person who gives that to city council. And then that way, if there's any questions, that person is there and they can give us detailed information.
Yeah, we have our principal here that can come up to the podium and ask any questions if not, so.
Right, but I think he's asking that we just do this going forward.
Yeah, definitely, yeah, we can.
And I don't want to put a person that's on the spot, if he's not prepared, I don't expect him to come up and put something out there, but if he's prepared, I would love that.
Yeah, he's prepared.
Just need a copy of it, or, I didn't bring a copy of it, but I did write it.
Yeah.
Would anybody have that?
It's right here.
It's not in the board.
It's right here.
It's not in the,
Yeah.
the packet itself. Thank you, Mr. Gordon.
Yeah, not a problem at all. Okay, so basically the high school, we run 8 periods per day. 7 of them are your typical classes, right, for your students. One of the classes is a shorter class. It's been built in for, I want to say probably 10 years, maybe a little bit more. It's called advisory. And so over the years, that curriculum has grown a little bit more and more. The kids don't get anything out of that. They get a pass or fail, no credit at all. And it's 35 minutes a day. So I think I did the math and there's something like that, 35 minutes per day, 175 minutes per week, right? That they're in a classroom, being provided, learning experiences that they're not getting any kind of credit for. The teachers, it also helps the teachers as well because they're not really seeing much value when they're trying to teach the kids, and the kids are not participating at a certain level because they know that it's not valuable to them. So we want to provide the kids an opportunity to earn credit. It's just a single credit per semester times 4 years, eight semesters. It's 8 credits total over 4 years. I think that's a very valuable thing to provide students. They're there, they're working, and we want to recognize that work. I think that's important on behalf of children, right? We want to make sure that their time is valued, and we want to make sure that they're also taking the curriculum seriously. It's a variety of topics that are pressing to children today. Children today have a lot of needs across the board, and so you'll see things that are listed there. We want to build in also a little bit of flexibility as things come up throughout the year to be able to meet the needs of our children. So I hope that helps to kind of clarify. Do you guys have any other questions about that?
So in the past, they have not received credit for that.
No, not at all.
So they will be receiving 1 credit for that?
Yeah, a single credit per semester. Yeah.
And the added curriculum or the added classes that you're giving them, are those already built into our system, in our program that the board has approved?
Well, let me say it this way. The curriculum is, not to my knowledge that it's been approved by the board, but it has been built into the system and refined over years. And it's gotten to the point now where I feel like it's very productive for children to be a part of. Early on, it was kind of hit and miss. It was basically English and math support to help meet the needs of the CASP testing. But today we've really made a robust curriculum to meet the needs across the board, including behavior, social emotional things, digital citizenship. I mean, there's a list of things there on that document.
And can you tell me how guidance is fitting into that now? Because there's no guidance class anymore, correct?
Right. So what we found with the master schedule was that we were scheduling English classes as English 9 and 10, or let me use math for example, that's even better. So math 1 and math 2, those are predominantly an algebra and a geometry class, right? Well, the way we were set up before was that all 9th and 10th grade special education students were put into just an algebra A class. Well, if we were to be asked if that's grade level curriculum, the special education students should be a part of grade level curriculum, that they weren't really getting that, right? So the way that we came up with the solution was to move the guidance time into advisory. The special ed department, the teachers are really happy about that. That's given us the opportunity to build out the schedule to have math 1 for special ed education students, Math 2 for special education students, Math 3 for special education students. Same thing with 9, 10, 11, and 12. It was always for freshmen and sophomores, English 9, 10, English 11, 12, right? And so we all know that a teacher's not going to be able to teach 2 curriculums simultaneously to special education students. That's too tall of an order to ask of any teacher. I don't care if you're the Michael Jordan of teaching. That's just a bit too much to ask. So it's really been an approach to meet the needs of the kids first. We're staying student focused, and I have had nothing but glowing reviews and back from the teachers on the approach that we're attempting to take.
Thank you.
Is that okay?
I motion to approve.
I'll second. Roll call, Valerie,
Aye.
Teresa. Aye. Sammy,
Aye.
Patty. Aye. And I. Business, consider the approval of the Big Smiles Memorandum of Understanding for Comprehensive Dental Services to Corcoran Joint Unified School students.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Question. Where are they going to be doing this? Are the individual offices?
They'll be doing it at each school. And so the school will set up a site within the school to be able to provide the support. And I think they have a mobile unit as well. So part of it's mobile, part of it's at a designated spot within the school.
Thank you.
Yep.
Roll call, Valerie,
Aye.
Teresa. Aye. Sammy,
Aye.
Patty. Aye. And I. Consider approval of the King's Partnership Memorandum of Understanding to provide workshops and training to Corcoran Joint Unified School District Centralized Services staff.
I move to approve.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Roll call, Valerie,
Aye.
Teresa. Aye. Sammy,
Aye.
Patty.
Aye.
And I. Consider approval of the Corcoran Journal Memorandum of Understanding to advertise between 20 to 23 full pages in the next 2 years.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Roll call, Valerie.
Aye.
Teresa. Aye. Sammy,
Aye.
Patty.
Aye.
And I. Consider approval of the Minga Solutions quote for Corcoran High School for the Minga bundle for the 2024-25 school year.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Comment. Thank you for the explanation of that part of the meeting. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Roll call, Valerie.
Aye.
Teresa. Aye. Sammy,
Aye.
Patty.
Aye.
And I. Consider approval of the Western Tree Care Corporation and landscaping estimate for the removal of the district office front trees.
I motion to approve.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Roll call, Valerie.
Aye.
Teresa. Aye. Sammy,
Aye.
Patty.
Aye.
And I. Consider approval of the Shellco Industries quotes for furnishing and installing urinals and partitions at John Muir Middle School.
I motion to approve.
I second.
Any discussion? Roll call, Valerie.
Aye.
Teresa. Aye. Sammy,
Aye.
Patty.
Aye.
And I. Consider approval of oral E-Mitchum Corcoran Core 2 to replace plywood from roofing demo.
I motion to approve. And second.
Any discussion? Roll call, Valerie.
Aye.
Teresa. Aye. Sammy,
Aye.
Patty.
Aye.
And I. Future agenda items.
I've asked in the past for the current contract for our school resource officer and also a status on an update for the second SRO that we were looking for. I've yet to receive that information. I would like that by the next board meeting, please.
Yeah, we can get that information for you, sort of see.
I'd like the current contract and I also would like the last contract that this board approved.
Okay, I just want to make sure, following the board handbook that you approved, that it's actually the board, not to make, if it's the board's will to have the next one or at another board meeting. For the board handbook.
I'm okay to have that the next
I'm sorry.
one. Okay, that's for me.
I am as well.
I have one clarification, Madam President, if I can. So just a clarification, thank you so much for the feedback on the meeting itself, and I'm very familiar with actually the process you're talking about. So just for the agenda here, for example, and it's just clarity, not only for myself, but for our team. So normally what I'm used to is the consent is consent, and then each of the items that is beyond the consent, the person would actually make the presentation first, then what would happen, right? Okay, so the reason why we're kind of bouncing is because part of the kind of parameters is trying to keep the meeting within a certain time, knowing that, if we're gonna follow that, I want to make sure that we're clear that that'll extend the time of the meeting, which is fine, because that's what I'm used to. But I want to make sure that we will need to, because it'll be confusing for staff if we're doing a report for one but not for another. Does that make sense for each of the things? So it'd be like, we do the report for each one, it can be short, and then the approval, because then we won't necessarily know which ones will be the one that we need to actually present on and which one doesn't. Because in the past, in 3 other districts, we've done it where it's like you have it where it's presented prior than the vote. So I'm just asking for clarity from the board.
So if you think it belongs on the consent agenda, you can put it there, but we also have the right to remove it from consent agenda and discuss it, correct?
No, definitely. I'm saying the things after consent. So for example, we did, which is a great example, and Principal Larkin did a great job of modeling that. But then it would be the subsequent items as well. We'd follow the same process. And so I just want to make sure that we're clear, because then we'll need to be able to do it for each subsequent item. Follow the same kind of process that Mr. Larkin modeled. And I just asking for clarity around that.
I think for me, it's bigger for me, most concerned if we're changing something that we've been doing for the last 8 years that I've been here, and we're gonna change something. I need an explanation, and whether it's on the request that's submitted to you. If it's clear and paints me a very good picture of why we're doing it and what the fiscal impact is gonna be, I'm okay with that. It's when the paperwork is not complete, when I don't know what we're spending to send somebody somewhere or what we're spending for a new program. $120,000 to me is a lot of money that could be used for the kids. And if I don't get an explanation of why we're using it, then I think I want some explanation. That's what I was trying to get to.
And then that makes sense, but one thing I would request from the board, because it's hard, there's 5 trustees and then trying to figure out what's clear for some and what's not clear for others is gonna be a guessing game. And so instead, I know part of the board, handbook is to, and you did, thank you so much for asking questions prior. But it also is, where normally in the past, we would just prepare for anything that's outside of consent to be presented. And so even if it's something short, I'm good with that with the staff, but I just want to make sure that we're not trying to hit a moving target, in a lack of a better word. And then at that point, it's like, we don't know what's what, right? So I just want to get some clarity. So maybe that's something that, through the president, we can do, but I'm all for what you're saying, because I think that's, I'm used to that model. But it's basically what happens after consent is going to be presented. Every item is going to have some kind of presentation. And so I think at the city, if you were trying to figure out each council person's, what was clear and what was not clear to them, it would kind of be hard. So I need to be able to either have for the staff, what is going to be, what's going to be the criteria, the threshold, right? So I would recommend that it's just everything that's beyond consent. But I want to make sure that the board is also wanting, to give us that clarity as well. If that makes sense.
I'm sorry to say this, being new in the board, I still don't understand the way that we do it with the consent or not, but I think like Mr. Larkin was prepared to explain to us, shouldn't be in consent and it truly needs some clarification. I would think that the staff that are presenting the information for requesting it would take their time to be here and then be able to respond if they happen to be here during that time. If not, then it'd be something that could be put on the table for the next one. If we truly don't understand.
Oh, definitely. So I'm hearing that we'll go ahead and anything that's after the consent agenda, we'll definitely prepare to present. Even if it's something short, whatever the case may be, we still do the update in the board update. And then also, I also make myself available prior to the board meeting for any one-on-ones, if there's any other questions. And then also, you also have our staff's numbers and emails that you can also follow up with them as well. So we make all those different avenues available, but we will do that. I love that idea because that's what I'm used to as well. And so we'll go ahead and from this point on, we'll do anything after the consent, we'll do a presentation for them.
I have one more question. Why are we having a workshop for SSC to present their findings? And why are we not doing it in open session?
That is definitely a, so just for clarity, because we're here in this meeting setting, the board asked for a audit of the recruitment and hiring process for human resources from school services in California. That's SSC. I'm just doing context building for the community that's watching. In addition to that, I recommended that we also look at an organizational audit because we also need to look at, are we organized the right way? Does that study of the process actually also bring into light that, you know, the current structure of human resources, which is about 1.25 or 1.5 FTE for over 400 employees, is that adequate? And so you went ahead and approved it as well, which is great. Thank you so much. And so they actually are finishing up the reports. When I spoke to them, they recommended that that workshop actually be in a closed session setting, so you can have a good conversation amongst yourselves, ask questions. They can come back and provide a report to the board in open session with that. So it's really the will of the board on how you want to have that take place. We're talking both about you know, organizational potential organizational changes, differences in FTE, et cetera, that might be what I've experienced in the past to be better done, and I agree with them, to be done in closed session first, so you have that opportunity to have all those questions, and then do something in open session that's very similar. You're not going to take any action at the workshop. The workshop is only for you to ask questions. So there's no action taken there.
But it also kind of gives the impression that we're not trying to be transparent. I think this is something that this is paid with public money. We asked for that report. Well, we asked for one part of that report. You should get the second part. Okay. Since then the budget has changed, but we probably paid a lot of money for it. I don't think it should be done in closed session because I think everybody, including the public, needs to know what was brought out in that, with the exception of things that they may have found, that if they found anything that were not good findings, is what I should say, as far as the human resources and how we do that part with their recommendation. But I don't think that should be done in closed session. I think it should be done in open session.
Yeah, then that's fine. I appreciate that. The report itself, the reports will be made public. So just giving you that opportunity to be able to have that conversation prior. And so that's really you know, that if it's the will of the board as a group, if that's your will to have it an open session, that's fine. You know, it's just really more their recommendation, and I agree with that recommendation, that you have an opportunity to discuss internally first, to wrap your brain around that, because you're asking questions, you're gonna have to ask hard questions, and doing that in open session might be a little bit well, you won't get that conversation that you would in close. And so that's why they're recommending that. It goes both ways. I'll give you one example. There was one district that did it and it didn't land well. Because one is the board, they didn't necessarily ask the questions that they wanted to, because they realized that now it's an open session. that type of thing, and then they still came back and did an opens, they'll still come back and do the presentation. And we post reports, because they're paid with public funds. We're gonna post reports and put them out for the public to have access to. So it's really the board's discretion as a whole. And that's also. I don't know if I get some clarity from the board as far as what you want to do, because the thing is, we're gonna have to set up time, and if we do it during a board meeting, that time that we need to meet with them is gonna be about 3 hours. So that's in addition to what we would have, and then we're shifting the way that we're gonna be doing the board meeting, so then that tacks on time too. So that's what we're trying to do, a board workshop, which is a standard way to have a conversation. So just want to get clarity from the board. Closed session, open session. It's not gonna happen in August because we want to make sure that everybody's there. And so they've given us a date for September, which is September 3rd as a potential date. And then if that doesn't work, then we would look at something else.
I'm okay with being in closed session and reporting out.
Where can go with that recommendation too?
I understand both ways. I think 3 hours may be a long time to expect of, people from the community to participate.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and find out about the date, and then we'll do close, it sounds like. Okay, thank you.
Please don't have it on any football days.
No, we're actually doing it between a Tuesday and Wednesday, but trying to look for an off Wednesday, excuse me.
She did get back and say September 3rd at 5:30. That you? Okay.
Yeah, we can reach out to you and do it that way, like we normally do. Thank you for the clarification.
I'll second.
Oh, I'm sorry, we did, but we didn't go back.
Roll call, Valerie. Aye. Teresa.
Aye.
Sammy.
Aye.
Patty.
Aye.
And I. Meeting's adjourned at 7:31 PM.